Hey guys, Dr. Adam here. I've helped hundreds of men reverse insulin resistance, fix their testosterone, and reclaim their energy. But today I want to talk about something personal, what I learned from wearing a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. Some doctors say that the CGM is unnecessary, especially if you're not diabetic and you're not on insulin. But I disagree, especially now that CGMs are affordable. It's one of the best tools that I've found to understand your real-time metabolism. And today I'll show you why. What you're about to see are real insights from my own experience, so the good, the bad, and the surprising. Plus, I'll share a few powerful lessons from clients who completely changed their trajectory just by tracking this one metric. Let's start here. Blood sugar spikes. They aren't always a bad thing, but you can still feel them. So here's the deal. When you eat, your glucose should rise. That's normal. But how high it rises, how fast, and how long it stays elevated, that tells the real story about your metabolic health. So here's a breakfast I had. It's a protein bar plus a banana. We were camping, so that was all I had. That's all I packed. As you can see, my blood sugar went from 116 to 164 and then dropped back down to 110 about 90 minutes later. Now, on paper, that's fine. That's technically normal. It's not going to give me diabetes. But here's the issue with that. I felt that swing. So I got hungry 2 hours later. My energy dipped. And I found myself grazing throughout the morning. And those are all signs of poor metabolic flexibility when your body can't efficiently shift from glucose to fat for fuel, when you can't even make it 4 hours without needing to eat again. That's a problem. And one of the biggest wake-up calls I've had around my blood sugar was during a 15-mile bike ride. I had fueled that morning with, what I previously thought was a great meal. So it was oatmeal and berries and chia seeds and peanut butter, maybe some honey. It sounds pretty textbook healthy before cardio, right? But halfway through that ride, I totally bonked. My legs felt heavy, my brain was foggy, it was a little shaky. I needed more quick sugar just to finish the ride because I had fueled with fast burning carbs and didn't have enough fat adaptation to access deeper reserves. So I was riding on a glucose only engine. And a riding buddy of mine used to call this the continuous glucose drip, because if you rely on carbs as your main fuel source, you burn through them quickly and then you need more. And it's like, keeping your performance on a short leash. Once your glucose runs out, so does your energy and so does your focus and your strength. And that experience made me realize that blood sugar isn't just about long-term health. It's directly tied to performance today. Next big takeaway is that even, quote unquote, healthy foods, things like sweet potatoes and oranges and beets, brown rice, even these healthy foods can spike you. Now, for me, it was seeing the impact of a baked sweet potato that really opened my eyes to this. And how did I know it was the sweet potatoes specifically and not the rest of the meal? Like a good citizen scientist, I tested the meal with and without the potato, and the potato was the spike. Now, if you're insulin sensitive, a glucose spike here and there probably is fine. It's okay. It's healthy. But if you're insulin resistance, it's like pouring gas on the fire. Chronically elevated glucose means chronically elevated insulin, and that blocks fat burning. It increases fat storage. And over time, it leads to cellular insulin resistance. And then over the course of years, you get type 2 diabetes. So yes, sweet potatoes are nutritious, but depending on your metabolism, they might still be working against you. Speaking of sweet potatoes, with my clients who have diabetes, the goal is to rebuild carb tolerance over time. And the first foods I test are berries and then sweet potatoes. But we always boil them, not bake them, since boiled potatoes typically have a lower glycemic index. Now, this reminded me of a client who swore he was eating clean. So lots of whole foods, lots of fruit, and even sweet potatoes, but his weight wasn't budging. So we looked at his macros and he was eating way too many carbs, not enough protein, and just had these glucose swings all day long on his CGM. So he wasn't technically overeating in calories, he was overeating carbs. And once we adjusted his meals, so more protein, higher satiety foods, he had fewer glucose swings. And then the weight finally started to come off. His hunger also stabilized, and then his energy came back. And the CGM showed us exactly how this played out. Another client with type 2 diabetes started doing just one thing, walking for 15 minutes after meals. That's it. So no calorie counting, no new workouts. But within a week, he noticed fewer post-meal crashes, better digestion, and then smaller spikes on the CGM. And that's because walking activates your skeletal muscle, which soaks up glucose without requiring insulin. It's one of the easiest hacks to improve glucose control. It only takes 15 minutes. And he didn't change the way he ate, he just moved more. And the CGM showed him that it was working, which then provided the motivation to keep going, keep walking on a daily basis. So in that case, instead of using a 3-month A1C test to monitor progress, we saw it live. That kept the motivation going. Now, here's where the CGM really changed the game for me. Because instead of obsessing over single spikes, I started looking at my daily average glucose variability. When my daily average stayed under 110, I felt locked in. So my energy, my focus, my food cravings, my sleep all felt better. But then once I drifted a little bit higher in the average range, 115 to 120, even just for a few days, I could feel the difference. There's more cravings, more hunger, lower energy, less drive. And just so you know, a 117 average glucose corresponds to an A1C of 6%, and that's the threshold for prediabetes. So now instead of chasing perfect meals, I ask, what's my daily average? Where are my outliers? How can I keep my range a little bit tighter to get my energy dialed? And the last point on this is, well, at least for me and many of my clients, wearing a CGM holds us accountable. Psychologists call this the Hawthorne effect, which essentially means that we behave differently when we know we're being watched. And with the CGM, I tended to behave better. I made better choices with what I ate and when I ate. It's a little Big Brother-esque, but it works. It worked for me. And I've seen it help guys, really break bad habits when it comes to eating, and then also help them build new routines. So yes, some doctors say CGMs aren't worth it unless you have diabetes or you're on insulin. I get that, but I actually found it super helpful. For me, the CGM is a data tool, it's a motivation tool, and a source of accountability. It was helpful because I wasn't obsessing about the numbers, which, doctors do warn about. I warn about it too. But instead, I use them as a reference to help determine what parts of my diet and lifestyle needed adjusting. In the past, it was easy for me to justify a bowl of granola at night as a dessert, as a treat, until you see it mess up your numbers for the next 4 hours. Or it's easy to, and convenient to skip a walk after dinner until you realize how much it blunts a spike. Wearing a CGM has also made me more conscious of late night snacking and has really helped me fine tune when I eat in general. So look, if you're trying to optimize performance or reverse type 2 diabetes or just, feel better, more energized, this tool gives you immediate feedback. It removes the guesswork. It keeps you honest with your game plan. So big picture, here's what I learned while wearing a CGM as a doctor. Spikes aren't bad if you are insulin sensitive, but they do have an impact on your performance. Healthy foods aren't always harmless. And then small habits like walking or hitting your protein target have big metabolic returns. And then daily averages tell the real story. So CGMs aren't magic, but like I said, they're honest. And if you're serious about upgrading your metabolism or reversing type 2 diabetes, this is one of the best tools I can recommend. All right, subscribe for more videos on men's metabolic health and performance.